Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are. Just want to welcome you to day 9 of the ERP Cloud Implementation Bootcamp review course. Today we are looking at develop, and we are going to continue to build or configure our environment from yesterday. Now, if you haven't finished, you can still continue to build even over the weekend. So the configure and build phase is, as I said, it's an iterative phase. And what I'm going to do is just continue from the setups from yesterday. So let's have a quick look at what we needed to do. Let me just expand my screen. I'm logged in as my user who became an employee yesterday. And let's go into setup and maintenance and have a look at some of the things that have been loaded by the rapid implementation spreadsheet. And then today we will create a supplier, we'll create customer, and then we'll try and create an AP and an AR invoice. And tomorrow we'll go into the bank, set up banks, and then we'll try and also make payments. So let's go to payables. So as part of the load, common options for payables and procurement. Again, this is part of the things that was loaded automatically, and the setup was done based upon the load. It appears that it's, again, is slow. So let me just switch off my camera so that it could run a bit faster. So very quickly, you've got a liability, your payments, so all of these accounts have been completed based upon the rapid implementation spreadsheet and the analysis that I said that you need to do with the business. Now, when you come to these options, key things to look out for is if the business have said they want to do on-time payments, then you probably need to enter the liability and the expense accounts for one-time payments. And also very crucial, depending on the type of business, whether they want to accrue at receipt or accrue at period end. So accrue at receipt is mainly for inventory and companies that actually have stock. Period end is mainly for service-based companies and they have a lot of expenses. So that's the main difference between the two. From an accounting perspective, there's big differences. And when we were looking at the accounting workbook, you saw examples of what would happen if you accrue at receipt or accrue at expense. So those are the key information. You can also enter information like your VAT member state, VAT number, bill to location. So these are optional things that you can enter. Another part of the setup that you need to look at is the invoice options. So invoice options will give you the information that you need to process invoices. And this is where you will set up defaults like your default invoice currency, payment currency, pay group, payment terms. So the rapid implementation will update the required fields, the ones with an asterisk with some defaults. Again, you need to ask the business whether these are their defaults, or you can make override at this level. Bearing in mind that this can change depending on whether it's at supplier level or maybe at transaction. An example of that is things like payment terms that can change all the way through. So when you're entering an invoice, you've got examples of some setups of attributes that can affect the flow of invoice entry. You've also got your matching tolerances. Again, this is mainly for PO matching. If you're taking discounts, if you're processing prepayments, approvals will come back to approvals much later in the course. Things like interest, payment request. Again, these are mainly for expenses and other payment request type of invoices. So, and also self-service invoices as well. So again, these are some of the invoice options. Have a look at this. And when you're going through this with the business, you will begin to ask them questions related to how they want to process invoices and how they normally process invoices. Payment options is another one that you can also look at. There are some defaults that are already set up, so you can either override the defaults or accept them as is. One that I usually ask for is require conversion at rate entry to be unchecked. So, require conversion rate entry to be unchecked. So these are just some of the options. Again, we'll look at payments much later in the course, but these are just some of the options that you need to look out for. On the receivables side of things, key things to look out for are the receivable activities. So have a look at the receivable activities. Again, a lot of these are entered by the system. So again, you have some defaults. Now, these are defaults counts and what happens when certain activities happen within receivables. Some of them are things like your adjustments. So if there's an adjustment to a receivable, what's the accounting? So for example, if there's an adjustment reversal, what is the accounting? How is that working? In terms of, is it going to use GL source for the reversal? What about the tax? Again, these are some of the defaults. In some cases, it will require some GL account, depending on the option that you select. So if I look at earned discount, so for earned discount, for example, we're saying that for any earned discount, it should use the GL account source, and is asking for what's that GL account source that it's going to be using. So again, these are for some of the receivables activity. In some cases, the business would say we don't do some of this, then yeah, there's nothing wrong with just leaving this setup here. Unfortunately, you cannot delete them, but you can overwrite them. So that's the receivables activity. Another one that you can also look at is the system options. So actually, before that, let me just go into receivables system options. Okay, let's go to there we are. Receivable system options. Again, I'll come back to some of this setup later, but I'm just showing you very quickly what you would need if you're going to be doing the first round of your CRP, well, not CRP, but your MVP, minimum viable product. So Acme business unit. So let's just find out. Just search for it. Yeah, Acme US. And I'm just going to go through some of the receivable system options. And some of these are also used for cash processing. So again, default accounts are entered. You have some options. So again, at the moment, don't worry about all of this for now. But the key thing is that things like the application rule set, I mean, this is for billing and revenue. Most of this is for accounting for your billing and also application of receipts when you're actually receiving funds from your customers. So key things to note is that you need to have a default country. You need to have application rules set discount basis if you're doing discounts. The accounting. So again, all of this will be defaulted in. Then if you're going to be using inventory or order management, you need to have an item validation organization. And then you can put in some defaults for collections. This is for done-in letters, statements, transaction delivery. So you can put in the defaults. This is where, so these are the email addresses for sending out statements to your customers. And and also invoices to your customers. So you can put the defaults in there. With charge on late payments, you can put the how that's calculated, default group for your customers. Again, I'm going to go into this in a bit more detail later. And also your auto invoicing. So that's, and then for cash processing, again, you have some defaults. Cash processing, yeah, auto cash rule, auto apply, accounting for cash, some of the auto match rule. Again, when we get to cash management, I'll go through some of this again. So all these are done by the rapid implementation spreadsheet. So check those details, make sure that the ones that are required are filled in. In some cases, it doesn't fill all of them in, depending on what's happened during the load and so on. Now, required for billing is your is your things like your remit to addresses. Again, this will use the defaults. We're using US for now, but you may need to create this for your country if you're specifying this for your country. So again, that's something that you need to look at. Now, and then you've also got your auto accounting rules. Again, these are another way of generating accounting. The system will automatically create this as well. And once you've checked all these details, you can then go on and open your periods. So what we're going to do now, we're going to open periods for accounts payable and accounts receivable. And then we're going to create, you can see these are the automatic accounts for receivables, for revenue. So it's giving us the default for our business unit. All these are done by the rapid implementation spreadsheets. You can always go in and override these values as well. Now, what I'm going to do is open my GL. We've opened our account. I'm going to open the current period for GL. And then I'm going to go in and open AP and AR. So let's go into general accounting, period close. And let's have a look at so at the moment, the current period is never opened. Make sure that it's set to your account. This is using the data access set. Remember, yesterday we were giving this user access to this data access set. So I'm going to select my period for general ledger, and I'm going to open the target period, which is March 23, and that will open all the periods all the way up to March. So I'm not going in to open each and every one by one. So it's just going to open everything. And I'm going to go to actions, open target period, and I'm going to select March 23. And that will open all the periods up to March 23. So that would do that. And then we're going to do similar thing for our AP. Okay, so that's submitted. It's fine. Let's go into payables. Again, we've never opened the payables period, so it's asking us what's the first period you want to open for payables. We'll say April 22. That should actually be Jan. I'm not sure why it's bringing up April. Okay, it doesn't really matter. I'm not putting any transactions there. But okay, maybe because GL is still opening, that's why. So first open period, let's do that. Gonna do the same for receivables, open the first period. And then I'm gonna open all the periods up until March 23. Nothing's showing for now. I'm not sure why. I'll come back and look at that. Maybe it rolls. Maybe I haven't given myself enough power to do that. So let's go into, oh, okay, interesting. Hasn't recognized. Okay. Okay, whilst GL is, let's see if GL's finished. Okay, GL's finished. So why isn't this allowing me to do receivables? Okay, I'm going to I'm going to try it in another way. Let's go to my AP screen, payables, invoices. Okay, yeah, so I can see some transactions. So let me manage accounting periods from here. And for my Acme US actions, okay. Let's see if you allow me to open it. First period. Right, Jan 22. So I think because GL was still opening earlier on, yeah, so something was still processing. Yeah, it didn't give us this message earlier on, so I think I was a little bit impatient. So let's wait for the first period to open, and then let's do this for receivables as well. Application, let's go to receivables. Acme US for receivables. Jan 22, let's open that as the first period. So what I'm going to do now, whilst the period is opening, is I'm going to go in and create my my supplier. But for my supplier, what I'm going to do for suppliers, I'm going to actually just use supplier side, because remember that we're doing what is called a quick test. Now, by the time we finish this course, you should be able to know how to load suppliers in bulk for this kind of activities. So normally, it'll probably take you a couple of days to prepare for the initial MVP. So you can build your MVP within and get your scripts ready, everything within a week. You can actually do that if you have the correct data. So it's actually possible to do that. So let me go back to continue. I haven't made any changes there. So I'm going to go to procurement. Procurement actually owns the suppliers. Now, there are a number of suppliers that are already preloaded into this system. And the way supplier works is that suppliers are shared across. So you create a supplier at the header, and then you can create multiple sites, and then you give your site access to be able to transact within the BU. So I'm going to search for a supplier that already exists. Manage suppliers. And I'm going to look for one called Lee Supplies. And let's go into Lee Supplies, and I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to add my BU. So this is the addresses. So I'm going to select this address, for example. So this supplier already exists. Again, we're going to look at suppliers later. The whole point of this is that we just want to create our first, what I call pipe clean. So you want to run the data through to make sure that your setups are okay. So yeah, actually, I'm just going to create a new site for my Acme US business unit. It's going to be, I'll just leave it as a pay site purchasing for now. And I'm going to save this. So that's my site. So same address, different BU. So let's go into the site and look at the site assignment. It should have Acme US business unit there. So let's go to sites. So that's my supplier site. Let's have a quick look. So for my supplier site, key things to look out for very quickly is your site assignment. And before you can actually transact, you need to have your BU assigned to your site. So I'm going to just go to create assignments. That would just be one because I've only got access to that one. And then you can override your distribution, prepayment. So again, this is something that you could do much later. But again, payments, we're not putting anything on payments now. We'll do that tomorrow. Let's go to invoicing. Our main purpose is that we just want to create an invoice in a period. So US dollar, you can put things like your match option, match approval level. Again, you can see that some of these are very similar to what we have at the invoice options. Payment currency, again, at the supplier site. And then you have other options like the default payment terms, and also some of the other bits as well. So for now, I'm just going to stop at this point. We're going to come back and look at this. The whole point of this exercise is just for us to be able to create an invoice, and we're just testing to make sure that we can create a transaction. So this is actually your first round of build and test, and that's the whole point of the agile. So here, as you're doing your pipe clean, if there's any major things that are not quite right in your setup, you'll be able to do to fix it at this point. So for example, if you discover that you cannot do your site assignments, that means something is wrong in your setup. You go back and check that, amend your documentation, and then next round, you're good. So let's go in and create my invoice. But before that, let me just open the current period. Otherwise, I'll try and create an invoice for today in a period that doesn't exist or that's not open. So let's go to period, and I want to open my current payables period. Open target period for payables. And I want this to be March 23. So that would do that for payables. I'm going to do the same for receivables. And at the same time, I'm going to go and create my customer. So while the periods are currently being opened here, let's go and create our customer. as well as we open the target period for receivables. Going into March 23, click on open. And done. So what I'm going to do now is, whilst this, oh, okay, payables is now open, receivables. So let me do payables first, and then I'll come back to receivables with the customer. So payables, invoices, we have one supplier who can transact in our BU, and we're going to create our little, let's have a look. So at the moment, you're not too worried about the detailed functionality. That I'm going to show you how to get all that information. And there's a lot of information that you can start to do to drill down. But first of all, let's get the method. Let's get into the method of implementing first. So business unit, Acme, US business unit, my supplier is Lee Supply. So I should have supplier site filled in. There we go. So that's good. I'm just going to make up my invoice number, INV dash 160323 1726 and 260. Just making up some numbers here. So you can see that it's completed my date, payment terms. Again, all this coming in from my my invoice options. If it was PO, then I could be matching to PO here and so on. Show more gives me some more information. And you can see the type of invoice, payment currency, all defaulted in for my invoice options. The accounting, let's see if that's come through. So these are some of the things, yeah, that's come through. Liability distribution, so that's come through for my procurement options, payables and procurement options, and then any tax information for that supplier will come through based on the address. We're going to go through additional information later. I'll show you how to work with this additional information later. So in the main, the header looks fine. Let's enter some details in the lines. So lines, I'm going to create for 260. And let's go for our distribution. There's also a good point to test your cross-validation rules. If you've set them up, I'm going to create one for actually cost center, right? So the rule was that the cost center 000 cannot be used for the for anything but balance sheets. So let me just miscellaneous, the search for my miscellaneous expenses. I'm going to try and break my cross-validation rules. Set it up earlier on today. Let's click on OK. Okay, say no valid combination. Okay, that's not what I expected. So this will probably fail in the SLA. But it shouldn't actually have allowed me to do this. So I need to go back and check what's happening in my combinations. So this should be one of these. Okay. So that's my combination. What I'm going to do now is from my invoice actions, let me just validate. Actually, I should save first before validating. see what would happen. Okay, so that's done. That's validated. And I'm going to post to ledger. Now, this is the point you start asking the business when you're going through this in a workshop with them. Maybe you're going through the different details on this screen regarding tax, regarding shipments, regarding, so you're doing this, you're asking the questions, you're building, you're asking. So you're not just running this through once. You're going to be doing this multiple times. This has done the accounting, and we should be able to see this in GL for this period. Again, you'll be asking about holds, account approvals, taking them through some of the functionality, manage installments when we get to payments, be able to show them some of these bits as well. Taking them through the functionality and also at the same time running them through what all this means. Now, for some of you, probably thinking, how do I know all of this stuff? How do I learn all this stuff? Now, what Oracle have done is that on certain pages, you would see this question mark here. This helps. And it will pop up with some of these things. And you can always go in and view in detail what this means. So invoice correction, line types. I'm not sure why it's not opening. That should open and give you a bit more information about this. So again, that's one way to learn what you're doing on a specific screen. Now, you've also got the docs.oracle.com, which I would recommend that you get yourself familiar with the structure. Again, I'll take you through that much later in the course. But I think we're successful with our initial build of payables. So let's go into and have a look at receivables. So for receivables, we are going to create our customer. Now, again, we're going to use a customer that already exists. We're going to just add to this site and then build from there. So there's a few customers that come to mind. I'm going to use Pinnacle. So let's go to receivables. Receivables. First, let me check to see whether the period is open for receivables. Yeah, receivables is open, so that's good. Let's go back to receivables billing. Now, go to customers. So from the task on the right-hand side, you can select manage customers. Let's do a search. Okay, customers, you have the header, you have your account, and then you have your site. So that's the account. So at the site level is where you have your customer site set. So here is where we want to link this to our own BU. Now, with the reference data set, because this is created as cost site, and that's our reference data set. Again, let me just show you that part of the setup. Duplicate this tab. Go to my setup and maintenance. So because we've got cost sites here, that means that we can use this site for a number of BUs that have this as our reference data set. So reference data set just allows you to group and reuse the same set of data across multiple BUs. So for example, payment types, payment terms, customer details. So if I go to financials, just to show you the details, and my organization structures, my business unit set assignment, set assignment. So it means that this address, customer site, I could have multiple BUs using all these details. And I can even have different accounting. Remember that there was some accounting that we saw in the original setup, but you can have different accounting at the site level, just like you have for payables. So for my Acme US business unit, my customer account site, I'm using cost site. So that means that every customer that has this as cost site, as the address site, we can all share the same data. That's basically what it means. So I'm going to add my own BU to this. Oh, what's happened here? Let's cancel. Let's go back to billing. Billing. Customers. Cool technologies. And at my site, to add my own BU. So Acme US business unit. So all these BUs that you see here all have in their reference data set for customer in the set assignment are all got cost site. So that's why you can. So let me save and close. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to now create my receivables invoice. So let's go in, create a transaction, create transaction. And business unit. Acme US. Transaction source, maybe invoice, manual invoice. So transaction type invoice as well. And then I can specify things like invoicing rules, salesperson. But my bill to is going to be my Oracle technologies. And let me select memo line. So let's just do 1 year support. That's 20,000. Save. Again, for customers, for the invoice, you can also see more data. Again, you can see payment terms, line details, tax, and so on. Still trying to open my show more. It's incomplete. Let's see. Let's give him by invoice number. Okay, you can see more information. Miscellaneous, billing instructions, tax, and so on. PO number. Again, a lot of additional information. Invoice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to complete and review. That should put me in the status of complete. So that's complete, and I can view my invoice image just to have a look and see. Sampling invoice. This is an example of what will be sent out to the customer. Okay, there's a pop-up blocking it. There's a pop-up blocker there. So where is my invoice? This was the help that opened up earlier on. Okay, that's the invoice. So this is my sample invoice for my BU. This is what will go out to the customer. Again, later on, we will go and I'll show you how to amend this when we get to the technical aspects of the course. But then this is an example of where at this point, you could say to the customer or to your client, can you give us a template of what your invoice is going to look like? What information do you need on the invoice? And start to collect this information very, very early on in the implementation process. So let's post this to Ledger, save it, post to Ledger. And then we'll go into GL and look at our transactions. Yeah, so what you have is a lot of documentation that tells you how to use the application. So again, always use the docs.oracle.com. It's a lot of information here. If you go to all books, you can see user guides for each of the different modules in here as well. So view accounting, let's have a look. So that's done. So again, these are coming in from our setup. But again, this is an example of where you would ask the business, what's the derivation for your revenue, your receivables, and then you start to collect all that information from this point on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to GL. We posted a GL journal yesterday. And actually, let me just do save and close. Posted a GL journal yesterday, and that was in a different period. But then we've got some additional journals for today. So we're going to go into General Ledger, and we're going to look at the journals. And I'm going to look for the transactions that are coming for today for my payables and for my receivables. Then you've done a full pipe clean from all the way from payables, receivables, all the way to GL. So these are my payables invoices. Let's see See them here. You can drill all the way back down through the subledger. So this is my payables invoice. I can drill back down from here into my subledger and then into so invoice validated, my journal entry. Now I can, so this is my subledger journals. And I can drill down from here into the transaction. This takes me back into accounts payable. You can see the transaction in payables. That's if you have access via roles, then you'll be able to see the information in AP. So let's go back to receivables and see that transaction. Receivables transactions in receivables. Let's go back into receivables. My journal. It's my receivables journal. Again, drilling this back into AR. View transaction. Okay, taking me back into receivables. Go back to receivables. Now, what we've done today is taking us through the first iteration of our MVP and minimum viable product. And in terms of the assignments for today, day 9, we have creating supplier invoice, review payables journal, create customer, create receivables reference accounts, create receivables invoice, and view all of this. So that's basically what we've just done today. There are videos step by step on each of these areas, and also the 2-hour video for the initial session that we did. I think this is probably about a year or 2 ago, but it's still relevant. So go through this. I will post this video for today's session as well. You can always go back and have a look, but this is mainly what we need to go through for today. Any questions before we let ourselves loose on the environment? No questions? Oh yeah, questions. I was going to say that it's right, Dominic.
Hi, Emmy. How you doing? My question actually relates to one of yesterday's tasks.
Yeah.
I ran into an error when I was trying to set up the employee.
Right.
I guess my question would be, would I be setting up the employee under our Fin user ID or under our new setup user?
You'll be setting up the employee under your new setup user. So the user that you've set up, you've created, that's the user that you'll be using to create as an employee.
Okay. And I tried both, and I did get an error. Attribute legislative code not associated with legal employer.
Okay, so you missed a step, and that step, legislative, yeah. So the step that was missed, I think somebody else mentioned that yesterday, is this step here. Manage, this is the step that you missed.
Okay, practice manager legal.
Yeah, so this is the step that and it's good because you wouldn't forget this next time you do this.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, but one thing I also want to mention is that you don't need to wait till this session to let us know. So what you could do, if you put it on the community page, then you probably would, I mean, I always look at that every now and then, and maybe other people who have been through that issue would also be able to help you very quickly. So on the community page, go to questions, and I've got here questions for week 2. So just type in the
One
question.
in there.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and then click on post your comment, and then we'll definitely see if we can get back to you sooner.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions on what we've done so far? Yeah. Hi, David. Yeah.
One thing I noticed when creating the user, I think I had some issues, but it was my own error. One thing I did was when I linked the new user to the company they were working, I used the UK instead of the US. So after I'd created it, didn't have the roles and everything. So I had to go back and correct it. I deleted it. But one other thing I faced was that when I was putting through the email, I had to adjust the email a bit because the former user, the same kind of user, had the same email. So it was saying,
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah. The best way to learn is to do that. That's basically what I say. And the moment you start to do it, you start to learn so much. The more errors you make, the more you learn as well. And then you just go through it as simple as it becomes very easy. I was speaking to somebody about these flows, and this was must have been about a year ago or so. I was going through a workshop and going through things, and the guy was asking me, how come you're so smooth in the way you're doing this? And I said, I've done it probably more than 1,000 times. And he was just laughing. I said, yeah, possible. And I've learned so much along the way. I've made so many mistakes, but again, learning is doing, and that's how you become proficient in it. Yeah. So feel free to make mistakes, let me know, and then you will learn more. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything else?
Good evening.
Yeah. Good evening.
Yeah, so I thought you were going to share the task document with us. I didn't say.
Task document. So which one is the task document?
You mentioned it yesterday that we get to start building the day-to-day implementation tasks.
Right. So this is day 8, right? So in the assignment resources. So this is it. These are the. So this is the. Is this the one you're talking about? Agile MVP setup steps.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it's here. So you can download it from here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's already here. Yeah. So it's in day 8, and you can download it from here. The spreadsheet. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is Yomi, sorry.
Hi, yeah.
Quick question. During month end, sometimes after the workflow's gone through the approval process and everything has been signed off, and we have errors that saying the posting date is out of, it tells us to go back and amend the posting date because the period has already been closed. At that point, is it something that can, because there's not one, there's not two, there's so many that have that same error. Is that something that can be automated, or you have to manually go in there and change every single one of them?
It depends on the type of transaction. So what kind of transactions are they?
Mostly invoices from service invoices.
Okay, so mainly invoices.
Yes.
So when you do your month end, are you sweeping them into the next period?
Sometimes, the one we did last time, they tried not to because they wanted to close everything at that point, and anything that was having an error stating that period is not right. We ran a report. There was about maybe 60 different ones that had that error from the workflow, and we had to manually go back and change those. But is there any other way besides manual?
No. The only other way is to sweep it to the next period and fix it in the
Yeah, they didn't want to go. They wanted to
Yeah.
close it in that same.
then you have to fix it before. Yeah,
You can, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted. Thank you.
no problem. Okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you so much for today, and then we'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow we're looking at payments and banks. So thank you and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.